I'm good. Let's go.
All right, it is the biggest story still a week later in all of college softball. And to help us break it down from the Nebraska side, Marin Angus-Combs, she's with Hale Varsity. She covers Nebraska softball. I guess start here, Marin. What's the excitement level right now in Lincoln? It feels like they're adding on to the stadium. Like it seems like it's crazy up there right now.
It really is crazy. And I think I can say that it's not just Lincoln, it's the entire state. And so yeah, this morning I found out the details about what actually is going to be happening with the stadium. So it sounds like they're looking at adding some bleachers along the third base side and then finding some way to put seating in the outfield. So beyond that outfield wall, which would be crazy. I don't know what that would entail, if it's more like a party deck or bleachers or what, but I do know that the bleachers along the third base side will probably be similar to the ones along the first base side. And it's just insane. It's insane. The wait list
Yeah.
is longer than capacity at Bolin Stadium right now.
Well, yeah, I think this goes hand in hand with another tweet that you shared. I think it was over the weekend. Is that this has to be? It seems pretty obvious to me. Tell me if you disagree. But yes, the demand for tickets, it's we've got to get more seats to accommodate everyone that's in there because of the numbers that you put out earlier. I mean, is that basically it?
Right? And every day those numbers are changing, right? Every day the number of people on the wait list just keeps going up. I think yesterday I read another tweet that said it was over 2,500 on the wait list, and capacity at Bolin right now is around 2,500. So that's just the amount of people on the wait list. I don't think that includes the number of tickets that people want. So it's it, and it doesn't include the season ticket holders from last year either. So it's insanity.
Yeah, I think for the most part, everyone around here has been very supportive of Jordy Bahl. I think that there's been little hates. I like reading our text line during the radio show. I think just about everyone, and I think once the season starts, everyone around here is going to be rooting for Jordy Bahl. I know I'll be rooting for Jordy Bahl because I think it's a very genuine reason she wanted to go back home. Like who can hate on that? I don't think that you can. And I watched the entirety of the press conference yesterday that she had, and I don't know about you, but my big takeaway is she's at peace with this decision. You know, she looked happy. She was very thankful with her time with OU, but very excited to be back home. I don't know if that's the take that you got, but she felt like someone that was very at peace with her decision.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I would also have to throw in, like I coach club ball here for Nebraska
Mhm.
Gold, which is the same club that she played for. And actually this summer I coached against her older brother, and it was right before regionals, and I asked him if he was going to be able to make it to Norman for postseason, and he said no, that he hadn't been all year. And that struck a chord with me when he said that. And then she kind of hinted at that during her press conference, where, her family hasn't been able to come watch her. And that's a huge thing for her, to be able to be with her family and be able to hang out with her brothers. They're super close. And I think if we're all being honest with each other and really looking back at the season in its entirety, going back to the fall, she wasn't herself. She
Mhm.
wasn't herself in the fall, and she said that on another podcast. And then in the beginning of the season too, she wasn't herself. I think that's when Alex Storako really took on more of the ace role, because Jordy just wasn't Jordy, and it took her a while to figure out what was going to happen with her season. Thank God she did. She figured it out, but she looked off for the majority of the season. And so now to know that this was on her mind, I think she was able to maybe have that realization earlier, right? Like, I'm going to go home next year. Let's just make the rest of this year a good one.
And I think, and I speak for myself on this, I think I speak for a lot of OU fans as well, is, you have respect and appreciation, but now when you kind of realize, like, wait, Jordy had these thoughts during the season last year and maybe even before the season started. and she still kind of kept it all inside, and not was it wasn't just good. Like I keep saying, that's one of the most legendary Women's College World Series performances that I can remember. What Jordy did in Oklahoma City. So to have all of those emotions, maybe even know going into the postseason you're going to be at Nebraska next year and still perform at that level, it's insane. Like nothing but respect for her. I am curious, like how far back do these rumors go that this could be a possibility? Because from our end of things, it was pretty shocking last week.
Yeah, I started hearing rumors early in the spring. I would say late February, early March is when I started hearing rumors, just that it was a possibility. The later into the season we got, the more I started hearing it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just from a random softball person here or there. I mean, these were people that, have coached her in the past. These are people that are within the club. These are parents of players she's played with growing up. It started becoming more and more common for me to get a text that said, "Hey, you hear Jordy's coming home next year?" And I was like, "No way." Like, no, there's no way. But honestly, I thought there was a possibility she could have ended up at Omaha the way that people were saying she was coming home. And uh, I was a little nervous when she posted her tweet that said she was coming home without saying which school she was going to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, she's reuniting with a lot of her club ball teammates. She's following in the footsteps of a lot of her favorite players that she watched growing up. And it's that full circle moment, right? It's her returning to the place she was originally committed to, and she's taking this program to new heights.
OU and Nebraska have always had a unique rivalry. It's been more about respect than anything. I was in Lincoln last year for the football game, and that was my first time ever to Lincoln. I was just blown away. Like the entire town, the stadium, the fans, like everything was just so great. And it's just that mutual respect each program has for one another. So when Jordy was at OU, how did Nebraska fans did Nebraska fans root for her? Did they watch her? Like what did that dynamic look like during those 2 years?
Yeah, it's a really unique thing that I've learned in my couple of years in Nebraska. And Nebraskans pull for their own, no matter where they are. And for me, seeing like Jordy worked a camp for me last year, a year ago, and the amount of girls that showed up in OU softball shirts, I would have never predicted it.
Yeah.
But they weren't necessarily Oklahoma fans; they were Jordy fans. And kind of the same thing that I saw on Twitter a lot during the Women's College World Series this year. Heard old coaches from Papio, plus people that I know that, have watched her, went to Oklahoma in Jordy Ball stuff, right? They're Jordy Ball fans. And so I think that's what we're seeing right now is that those little girls that were watching OU for Jordy are now going to be cheering for their home team that they probably already cheer for in the fall when they
Yeah.
watch football.
I
Yeah.
mean, we just talked about it. It's, you're adding a player here that's basically creating stadium expansion. Like
Mhm.
there are few players in the history of collegiate athletics, if any, that have ever generated that much attention. So this is the biggest thing for Nebraska softball. This is the biggest thing for Nebraska athletics since when? Anything come to mind?
I texted Mike Sauter, who works at Hale Varsity and has covered prep sports for a long time in Nebraska, and he compares it to Jordan Larson, one of the
Mm.
best volleyball players to ever play at Nebraska. And she actually just announced around the same time that she was coming back to Lincoln to be an assistant coach. So the two announcements together, I think, have just exploded Husker women's sports. And but as far as a softball player coming to Nebraska, I mean, we have to look back. I think we're looking as far back as maybe Peaches James.
Mhm.
I think Peaches was most the most respected softball player in the area when she was at Nebraska, and I think that's how far back we're going right now.
Yeah. It's still crazy. And you look at the end of the season, and I think Nebraska fans understand what they're adding here, but at the end of this year, it's Jordy is at worst the second best pitcher in the sport. It's Nyjah Kennedy, Jordy Bahl, like those probably your 1-2 coming out. So when you realize that you're adding this type of player at that crucial of a position, Nebraska made a regional last year, but what are expectations going into next year with maybe the best pitcher in the entire game?
Yeah, and I think the other thing to look at when we compare like a Nyjah Kennedy and a Jordy Bahl is that with Jordy coming to Nebraska, she's going to be expected to hit.
Yeah.
And 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 I think OU fans saw what she could do in the fall and when it comes to hitting. And then, everyone saw she pinch ran in the World Series. I mean,
Yeah, it's crazy. Fastest
uh,
player on the team.
right? So not only is Nebraska adding that arm, but they're adding a big bat in the lineup. And so I think expectations now go from just maybe they went from, last season it was making a regional. And they, went on, they won the Big Ten tournament, secured their berth. And that was kind of the expectation to get them back on track. This year they won a game, and so I think the next step is to win a regional and to
Mhm.
make a super regional. I'm not going to set the expectation that they need to host a regional, but I think the likelihood of them hosting just went up. uh, but I think right now we're looking at the potential of them winning a regional and and playing in a super.
Yeah. I'm from 7.5, 8 hours away. When I just look at the Nebraska athletic department and like what the fans and maybe what they care about most, I see football obviously number one. I think women's volleyball maybe number two. They're going to sell out Memorial Stadium. Is Nebraska softball three now? Has it always been three? Is it creeping up to two? Like what's that look like now?
I think softball is a lock at 3 right now.
Yeah.
It has to be. I don't see why it isn't. And I don't think it's gonna take over a 2 spot because obviously softball hasn't been able to sell 92,000 tickets for an exhibition match at
Not yet. Not yet.
the football stadium. Not yet, but it could happen. Um, so I definitely would say softball's number 3 right now. But I would say, overall, if we're looking, at the Big Ten, you have to think that Nebraska softball is the favorite right now.
Mhm. Yeah, Northwestern losing their big arm in the circle this year. So yeah, I won't be surprised at all. Won't be surprised at all if Nebraska is able to win that conference next year. Do you have any? Because I know that you're always looking across the country. You
Mhm.
have any immediate thoughts on how much this is going to affect OU? Like I look at the lineup, and the lineup's still going to be really good, and I still think they're going to be really good in the circle. But do you think this changes the fact that OU was going to be the preseason pick to win another national championship? Do you think that changes that at all? Like what? How do you think OU sits currently?
No, I don't think it changes at all. I know Jordy's a great softball player, but if we look up and down that Oklahoma lineup and even with the bench players, and we know that Coach Gasso knows how to recruit in the portal as well. So
Mhm.
I don't think OU is gonna slip from their grasp at the top spot and prediction is for another national title.
Yeah. Well, just you like evaluating her as a pitcher. Like we saw Jordy at the end of the year just coming to her own. She looked like the best version of herself. But why is Jordy so dominant? I mean, the velocity's there,
Mhm.
but you're seeing Nyjah Kennedy throw 75 miles per hour. Like Jordy's velocity is good enough, but maybe it's not to 75 miles per hour like Kennedy. Is it because she mixes pitches so well? Is it location? Like, what is it about Jordy that makes her so special?
I'm gonna go into my nerdy deep dive here, okay?
Good,
So
please do. Go ahead.
okay, so Jordy's pitching coach in Nebraska, Darren Dubsky, is a mastermind when it comes to pitching. If you look at some of the best pitchers in the country right now, from our area, he has a hand in turning them into some of the most dominant pitchers in the land. So Jordy took lessons from him. Courtney Wallace took lessons from him. And then you add in a Ruby Malin who took lessons from him. And I have been able to sit in with him on some of his lessons, and it's mind blowing the amount of information that's given in an hour's worth of pitching. But you take that knowledge that you learn from him and apply it to your game, and then on top of that, you're able to perfect those pitches, right? You're able to have a rise ball with bite. You're able to throw a curveball that that fades away from a batter. You're able to, and then the the best thing that some of these pitchers have is an off-speed pitch
Mm-hmm.
to keep everyone off balance. And once you have all of those pitches down and you've learned from one of the best pitching coaches in the country, and then you go to a top-notch program and have pitching coaches like Jen Rocha, she's going to call the great pitches too. She's going to know, she knows what to throw. And because your pitcher is so dominant, it's like it's just magic. And I think having someone like Jordy Bahl now at Nebraska, Coach Revelle calls pitches. Okay. I'm not saying she's a bad pitch caller or anything, but this is going to help elevate her game as well, because she's got to look at Jordy and say she can't do this on her own, right? It's going to take two of us here, and it's going to take whoever's behind the plate to make sure that they frame it up to keep everything in front of them. So Jordy can't do it on her own, but I think she's had a lot of help along the way to get her to where she's at.
Sure. Last one I have for you is, I cover college football recruiting as well. So anytime a five-star quarterback commits somewhere, well, that school gets the quarterback, but they're probably going to get about 4 or 5 other players as well that wants to play with that quarterback. I haven't kept track of Nebraska in the transfer portal because Jordy's been such a big story. Has Nebraska gotten other players? Have they gotten interest from other top flight players in the portal? Do you expect them to, now that Jordy Bahl is going to Lincoln and they're expanding the stadium because of her?
Yeah. I actually was talking to my editor about this last night. And the one name that sticks out to me right now is Emma Koff. She hasn't committed anywhere. She's a grad transfer from Georgia Tech. She's from Lincoln. So she's an all-American catcher. She can do it all. And if Jordy's commitment back to Nebraska entices anyone to come home and finish their career at home, I've got my eye on her.
Yeah, well, that'd be a nice addition. And I already asked you about expectations, but we'll see if your answer changes here in a few weeks based on who else they can get in the portal. That'll be fascinating. I really appreciate your time. Happy for you guys up here. We're still sad down here, but we're going to be rooting for Jordy Bahl. That's for sure. And, the thing that I want to see next year is, to my knowledge, Nebraska is not on the schedule. And maybe they will be by the time Jordy's a senior. I don't know. But I just hope there's an opportunity for OU fans to give Jordy the send-off that she deserves. Whether that's a game in Norman or a game in Oklahoma City. Geez, the dream matchup would be a championship series between OU and Nebraska next year. Just something where OU fans could show their appreciation for Jordy Bahl would be great. But no, we'll be rooting for her. Mayor, and I appreciate your time. Continue to do awesome work over there at Hale Varsity. And I tell you to enjoy the upcoming softball season, but I know that this is going to be probably the most exciting one that you've seen up there.
Yeah, and I would actually, to add to your last point there, Nebraska is going back to the Mary Nutter this year in Palm Springs, and I know OU is always out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a February matchup out there on the big field, and that becoming a way for the OU fans to give Jordy the send off that they want, and just start the season that way. I would love to see that happen. It gives me chills thinking about it, but I love talking with you, and I hope that we're able to cross paths in the spring.
Yeah, absolutely. Marin_Angus, go follow her. She's got some really good stuff right now with Nebraska softball, with Jordy Bahl, and everything going on with the Huskers. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you.